Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. You ever notice how some buildings feel different after midnight? The lights buzz a little lower, the air hangs a little heavier, and hallways that seemed harmless during the day start holding on to their silence a little too long. That's the thing about office buildings. They aren't built for the night. And the man I'm about to tell you about, he learned that in a way he still can't talk about without staring at the floor. Subscribe to the vault and never walk alone again. Tonight's audio horror, The Woman Behind the Security Door, starts now. He worked nights for about a year, and he told me the place was quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. I mean, he said the vents barely made a sound. You know how every building has that constant hum, that mechanical breathing? Not this one. He said the silence felt intentional, like the whole place was waiting for something. He'd start his shift at 10, check the cameras, make a slow round, then sit near the back hallway where the employee entrance was. Nothing ever happened back there. No deliveries, no late workers, just a metal door with a wired glass window and a keypad no one used after dark. The first alert came on a Tuesday night. He said it was around 1 in the morning. The little chime from the doorbell cut through the silence. One quick tone. Not loud, just enough to make him look up from his monitor. He checked the camera feed and saw nothing. Just that empty hallway with the bluish overhead light flickering the way old bulbs do when they're thinking about dying out. He waited. Nothing moved. The stillness made him whisper, "Hello," before he realized he didn't want an answer. He figured someone outside hit the bell by mistake. Happens sometimes. People passing by. Kids. Someone leaning on the wall. But when he walked down the hallway to take a look, he said the air felt wrong. It was colder there, sharper somehow. He paused a few feet from the door and just listened. There was nothing. No wind outside, no footsteps above him, no hum from the overhead lights. Just a cold, heavy quiet. He told me he stood there for a full minute, trying to convince himself the camera hadn't just glitched. The second alert came 20 minutes later. Same chime, same empty camera feed, and he felt something then, not fear exactly, but awareness, like someone had just stepped into the room behind him even though he knew he was alone. He checked the outside live feed just to be sure. Nothing. That emptiness bothered him more than anything else. He said he kept staring at the frame of the door on the screen, expecting a shadow to break it. But the hallway never changed. By the third alert, he wasn't pretending it was a glitch anymore. He walked back to the door slowly, listening again for anything that sounded out of place. When he reached it, he stopped. He said the cold was immediate, like the temperature dropped the closer he got to that metal frame. He rested his hand on the doorknob just to see if it was warm or cold. It felt colder than it should have been for a door sitting inside a heated building. He leaned in a little, just enough to look through the wired glass. He didn't see anyone, but he felt something. He didn't want to say it at first, but he eventually admitted that the quiet was too full, like someone was standing on the other side, breathing so lightly he could almost mistake it for air pressure. He stepped back and returned to the monitors, but he kept glancing down that hallway every few minutes. He said it felt like the door was watching him. And that's how the first night went. No shadows, no whispers, just that chime. 3 times, each one a little more deliberate than the last. He didn't know it yet, but the door wasn't the problem. The problem was the space behind it. Something had claimed it. Something that didn't want to come in. It wanted him to come closer. And that was only the beginning. He came back the next night telling himself he wouldn't think about it. Night shift does that to people, he said. Too much quiet makes your mind look for patterns. He kept repeating that as he clocked in. But the building didn't feel the same anymore. He told me the silence had changed. It wasn't empty now. It felt like a held breath. You know that moment right before someone speaks, when the air feels tighter for a second. That's how his shift started. He checked the monitors around 10:30. Every hallway looked the same as always. Still, clean. Too still, actually. He used to see the cleaning crew pushing carts past the camera near the elevators, but they'd switched their schedule last week. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, but looking back, he said he wondered if they'd switched because they heard the doorbell too, or maybe something worse. Nothing happened for the first 2 hours. He made his rounds, walked the stairwell, past the darkened conference rooms with their glass walls reflecting the hallway lights. He said the reflections bothered him that night. They looked a little delayed, like the light wasn't bouncing back as fast as usual. He didn't see anything wrong. He just felt off. Then the first chime hit. Same tone as before. Soft, quick. But this time he didn't freeze. He told me he just stood there with his hand hovering over the monitor like he expected the camera to show him something new. It didn't. The hallway outside the employee entrance was empty again, not even dust drifting around. But he walked toward it anyway because ignoring it felt worse. When he reached the hallway, he stopped halfway. The cold was waiting for him. He said it didn't roll in or creep in. It was already there, like the hallway had been holding its breath all night. He walked slower this time, listening for that faint breathing he thought he imagined the night before. But he didn't hear it. Not yet. He leaned close to the wired glass again. The lights outside the door were working. He could see the ground, the concrete, the railing. Everything looked normal, but he couldn't shake the sense that something was standing too close on the other side, not touching the door, not moving, just waiting. He stepped back and whispered, "Who's out there?" And he felt stupid for saying it, but he swore he saw something shift in the reflection of the metal frame. Not a shape. More like the light bent for a second, like someone had just moved out of view. He went back to his desk, but he didn't sit. He stood behind the chair, staring at the door camera, waiting for it to happen again. He said the camera made him feel safer somehow, like the screen would buffer whatever was outside. That illusion broke 15 minutes later. The second chime didn't come from the doorbell. It came from the intercom beside it, the one no one ever used, the one wired to a dead internal line that only allowed one-way communication from outside to inside. He heard the low static crackle across the security desk speakers. Not a voice, just static, soft, slow, but not random. The rhythm felt human. He pressed the talk button and said, "Identify yourself." No response, just that soft static. Then it cut off completely. He stared at the monitors again, and this time he noticed something he hadn't caught before. The light above the entrance door was flickering in slow, steady intervals, almost like someone was walking under it, pacing back and forth just out of frame. He went back down the hallway, slower than before. He said the dread wasn't sudden this time. It grew with each step. When he reached the door, he didn't touch it. He didn't lean in. He just stood there. The cold wasn't sharp now. It was deep, like something was pulling the warmth out of the space. That's when he heard it. A soft exhale, not loud, not forced, just a slow, calm breath on the other side of the metal. He backed away immediately. He didn't run, but he said it took every bit of control not to. He returned to the monitor and watched the hallway for a long time, waiting to see something move. But the camera stayed empty, always empty. The third alert came just after 4. He wasn't near the monitors this time. He was walking the top floor. He heard the chime echo through the stairwell, muffled but clear. He said his stomach dropped. He didn't want to go back down there, but he didn't have a choice. So he walked, slowly, hand on the railing the whole way. The hallway outside the employee entrance felt colder than before, but it wasn't the cold that stopped him. It was the door. The wired glass was fogged over from the inside. You know how breath leaves that cloudy smear on cold glass? Except he wasn't breathing on it. And the building wasn't cold enough for that to happen on its own. And when he leaned just a little closer, he realized something that made him back up so fast he hit the opposite wall. The fog wasn't fading. Someone had breathed on it and stayed close enough to keep it warm. He told me he didn't move for a long time. He just stared at the glass, waiting for a handprint or a face or anything to show itself. Nothing did, but the fog stayed, perfectly still, perfectly formed. He didn't finish that shift. He waited in the lobby until sunrise. No more chimes, no more breathing, just that fogged glass, like someone was standing inches away from him the whole time. And that was only the second night. He didn't want to go back for the third night. He told his supervisor he was feeling sick, but they were short-staffed and he'd already taken too many nights off last month, so he showed up. He said the building looked different as soon as he stepped inside. The lobby lights felt dimmer. The air felt heavier, like something inside had been waiting for him. He swore the place felt aware now. Not haunted exactly, just attentive. He walked past the monitors at the start of his shift and didn't sit. He just stood there staring at the feed from the employee entrance hallway. The camera looked normal. No fog, no shadows, nothing out of place. But he said his body reacted before his mind did. His hands felt colder. His breathing got shallow. You know that feeling you get when you walk into a room where someone's been arguing, even if they're already gone. The air still holds what happened. That's how he described it. He started his rounds early just to keep moving. Every floor felt wrong. The offices were darker than usual, even though the lights worked. The break room felt too quiet. The stairwells carried sound differently, like echoes died before they reached the next step. He kept thinking he heard someone just a floor below him, walking slowly, keeping pace with him. But whenever he went down to check, the sound stopped. He told me it felt like the building was learning the rhythm of his footsteps. Around midnight, he returned to the monitors. That's when the first anomaly appeared. The camera facing the employee entrance showed a faint smear on the glass again. Not as heavy as last night. Just a light haze, like someone had breathed on it hours earlier and it hadn't vanished completely. He leaned in, trying to make sense of it. And then he noticed something else. The camera microphone was picking up a sound. It wasn't static. It wasn't wind. It was a soft, slow inhale, then a pause, then an exhale. Steady, calm, like someone standing very still. He muted it immediately, not because it scared him, because it sounded too human. The second anomaly happened 20 minutes later. The sensor above the door detected movement, just one quick spike. He said the alert tone sounded sharper this time, almost urgent. He clicked the live feed. The hallway was empty again, completely still. But the motion tracker kept blinking like it saw something standing right outside the frame. It wasn't detecting movement anymore. It was detecting presence. He walked halfway down the hall before stopping. That cold feeling wrapped around him again, deeper now. It felt like the temperature dropped a few degrees the moment he stepped off the carpet onto the tile. He said he could feel the cold sitting on his skin like a thin film. Not painful, just wrong. He moved a little closer. He didn't want to, but something about the stillness pulled him in. He whispered, "Is someone there?" before he realized he didn't want a response. He waited. No movement, no sound. Just that heavy quiet pressing against him. He returned to his desk, but he didn't sit. He paced. He watched the camera. He checked the outside feed every few minutes, even though he knew he wouldn't see anything. This wasn't about sight. Whatever was happening lived in stillness. It took another hour for the third alert to hit. But this one was different. It wasn't the doorbell. It wasn't the intercom. It wasn't the motion sensor. It was the old emergency call box mounted beside the door. The one they never used anymore. The one they'd disconnected years ago. It lit up bright red, glowing through the hallway like a single eye opening in the dark. He froze. He said the air felt heavier immediately, thicker, like someone had stepped into the hallway with him even though he was still at his desk. The red light kept blinking, slow, measured, almost like it was timed with breathing. He walked toward it even though every part of him told him to turn around. He reached the end of the hallway and stopped a few feet from the door. The red light blinked again, then again. He reached out and laid his hand against the wall beside the call box just to ground himself. The wall felt warm, warmer than it should have for a building this cold. And then he felt it, a vibration, soft, rhythmic, like someone tapping the wall from the other side. Not knocking, just tapping, slow, calm, intentional. He whispered, "Who's out there?" without thinking, and that's when he heard it. A voice didn't answer him, but the breathing returned, clear this time, close, right against the metal door. One long inhale, then a slow exhale, so controlled it sounded almost practiced. He stepped back, but the breathing didn't stop. It followed the rhythm of his steps, like it could sense where he was standing. He backed all the way to the middle of the hallway before the breathing finally faded. Not suddenly, not like it vanished, more like it pulled away, retreating, waiting. He returned to the monitors, shaking now, and rewound the camera feed from the last few minutes. The hallway looked empty the entire time, but something caught his eye. A faint distortion, a small shift in the light, just a shadow where there shouldn't have been a shadow. Not shaped like a person, more like the outline of someone who was standing too close to the glass, but the camera couldn't fully catch them. The edges didn't align, it didn't move, it just existed in the frame for 1 second before slipping back out of sight. He stared at that single frame for a long time. He didn't know if he was seeing a glitch or something else, but he said the moment he paused the video, he felt something watching him again. Not from the hallway this time. From the other side of the door, as if whatever was out there knew he'd finally seen it. That was the night he stopped thinking of it as a glitch. That was the night he realized the presence behind the door wasn't random. It wasn't wandering. It wasn't confused. It was deliberate. It had patience, and it had been waiting for someone who noticed it, someone who listened when it breathed, someone who came close when it called. And he had done both. He told me he didn't know how to get through the rest of that shift. He barely remembers sitting down. He barely remembers the sun coming up. But he remembers one thing clearly. When he looked at the final camera sweep before clocking out, the glass wasn't fogged anymore. There was something else this time. A single fingerprint, pressed from the inside. He didn't sleep that morning. He tried, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw that fingerprint on the glass. He said it wasn't just the print that bothered him. It was what it meant. Whatever was out there wasn't trying to get in. It was trying to reach him. He told me it felt like whoever or whatever was breathing on the other side had finally touched the boundary between them. And that meant the boundary was thin. He called off the next night. Then the night after that. But the building manager called him on the third day and asked why he hadn't reported the malfunctioning entrance equipment. He didn't understand at first. The manager said the cleaning crew found the emergency call box blinking on and off all morning. They heard the intercom crackling too. One of them swore they heard a woman say something just before the speaker cut off, but the manager wouldn't repeat what she claimed to hear. He just said it didn't sound like a prank. That pushed him back into the building, not out of bravery. He said it felt worse not knowing. You ever feel that? when something scares you enough to run, but the silence afterwards scares you even more. He said that's what pulled him back, the need to know if it was still there. When he walked through the lobby again, he said the air felt different, warmer this time, like someone had been standing just inside the entrance. He passed the monitors and felt his chest tighten. Every feed looked normal, but the employee entrance camera had a thin, foggy smear across the glass again. He said it looked fresh, still settling, and he hadn't even reached the hallway yet. He made himself walk slowly toward the door. He didn't run from it this time. He didn't freeze either. He just walked one step at a time, trying not to think about what he'd hear if he got too close. When he reached the halfway point of the hallway, the temperature dipped again. Not cold this time, more like a drop in pressure. His ears popped. The lights above him flickered once, and he felt that familiar awareness wrap around him, the feeling of being watched. He stepped closer, listening. No breathing this time, no tapping, just that heavy presence pressed against the other side of the metal. He leaned in a little, not enough to touch the door, just enough to see the faint outline of the fog. It wasn't random anymore. The fog was shaped like a curve, not a hand, not a face, more like someone leaning their forehead against the glass, quiet, still, waiting. He whispered, "What do you want?" He didn't expect an answer. He told me later he thought he was asking the question for himself, not for whatever was listening. But something responded, not a voice, not a word, just a soft, slow exhale, closer than before, close enough that he could almost feel the breath through the door. He backed away from instinct alone. But the breathing didn't fade. It stayed steady, like it was following his movement. He turned and walked quickly back toward the desk, and that's when he heard it. A voice didn't speak through the intercom. It didn't echo down the hall. It didn't whisper his name. It simply said one thing, low and calm and so close he couldn't tell if it came from the speaker or the door itself. It said, "Come back." His legs almost gave out right there. He said the voice wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It sounded disappointed, like he had walked away from someone who'd been waiting for him for a long time. He hit the alarm panel without thinking. The silent alarm went straight to the local police. They arrived 10 minutes later. They swept the exterior, the alley, the loading dock, the stairwell, and they found nothing. No footprints, no disturbed dust, no signs of anyone hanging around. They checked the camera feeds too. Nothing there either. The officer told him he might be overtired. He didn't argue. He just nodded because arguing would mean explaining the voice. They left around 4 in the morning. He sat by the front doors waiting for sunrise. He said he couldn't go back down that hallway. Not again. Not after the voice. But the building felt awake now, like the whole place was holding its breath again. The silence wasn't empty. It was full, heavy, intentional. He quit the next day, but quitting didn't matter. That's the part people never realize. Just because you leave the place doesn't mean the place leaves you. 2 days after he resigned, he woke up before dawn because he heard a chime. Not loud, not urgent, just that soft, single tone. The same one from the doorbell. It came from the hallway outside his apartment bedroom. He got up and checked. Nothing was there. No light, no movement, just a faint cold draft near the front door. The next night, he heard the intercom static, not from a speaker, just the sound itself, like it was happening inside the room. A soft, slow crackle, then silence. On the third night, he heard the breathing again. Not loud, not forced, just a slow, steady exhale coming from the other side of his apartment door. He didn't open it. He didn't look through the peephole. He stood there, frozen, listening to a presence that shouldn't have followed him. But it had, because it wasn't attached to the building. It was attached to him. He moved apartments after that, then moved cities, but he says it followed. Not every night, not even every week, but enough that he started keeping a towel at the bottom of the door to keep the cold air out. Enough that he avoids any door with wired glass. Enough that he knows it's still there. Still waiting on the other side of whatever room he's in. Still breathing quietly in the dark. And sometimes, when he's tired or distracted, he swears he hears her voice again. Soft, calm, disappointed, saying, "Come back." Well, Fright Night Vault listeners, this is the end of this story. If you have a horror story of your own, please feel free to drop it in the comments section. You never know, the next story could be yours. Subscribe to the Vault and never walk alone again.